Join Dalton and Jacob as they discuss the ever-changing world of trading card games. TCG Buzz starts now.
Oh, Jacob, you have arisen from the dead.
No, I haven't.
Well, I see you're still somewhat imprisoned behind your, behind the nice paint, the nice drawing that Christian made for you.
I think Dalton drew it.
You sure about that? It's got some...
Guys, vote in the comments. Was it Dalton or Christian who drew that? Anyways, today Bryce and I are talking about something kind of interesting. So people should know by now if they've seen our set overview of Buddy Legends, which I was not in, that you're getting into Buddy Fight, right?
Yes.
Playing some Zwei.
Yep.
Some Iron, maybe.
I'm waiting for Dragon End Day. It needs to be an impact monster. It's gonna happen.
All right. And I have been playing Buddy Fight for a long, long time. But also, what game have you played for years?
I've played Magic for a while.
Yeah. Have I played Magic before?
You've played a little bit, but you know.
Exactly. So we're in this weird position, Bryce and I, where each one is learning, the game that the other is pretty well versed in at the same time. So you're learning Buddy Fight right now, and I'm learning Magic, and we're both getting better and better, right?
Yep.
No, we're both still shit, right?
I could solve all my problems.
Bryce's strategy in Buddy Fight is throw the biggest thing on board he can and then just wreck house.
That's how I do it in Magic, too. You just stare at this Trastodon like, well, yep, that happened. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so I guess what I wanted to talk about, we didn't really plan this out. I gave Bryce about a 5-minute warning that we're doing this, as is my style. I want to talk about the experience of learning a new card game, but specifically how those experiences will differ based off of the games we've been learning. Mm-hmm. So what have been your experiences so far with Buddy Fight?
Well, so far, it's very aggro-based, similar to how Dragon Ball is. You just go in all in aggro, and you'll usually win 90% of your matchups.
This is because he hasn't fought my Prism Dragons yet.
Well, that's because Prism Dragons is one of the few, truly dirtily decks.
Yeah. They're... At least right now, yeah, Buddy Fight's pretty aggro, I would say. Okay. Whereas Magic, I've been playing a lot of it recently, right? And I had actually tried getting into Magic a few times before, and just the big reason, that never really happened was because I didn't have people to play with.
Yeah.
And now I've got several really cool groups of friends I can play with and play different formats. And I've played. So that's one of the big things for me that I'm not used to that Magic has.
Speaking of which, in the comments, what is your favorite format of Magic? If you guys want to let us know about that.
It's Pauper, man.
Oh, screw your Pauper. I got Commander.
No, so I've been playing tons of Commander. Getting into playing some Cube with a vintage Cube.
Vintage
that's
Cube
been really fun. I've played a decent amount of Standard, and I'm probably going to play a little bit of Modern with some budgety decks, hopefully, because I guess that's point number 2. Holy cow, can Magic cards get expensive?
Well, it's basically all in the mana base. There's but this is $2, and that's only $10. Why is your deck $1,000? All fetches and shocks.
Yep.
Right.
So for Buddy Fight, there are expensive cards, but not on the same level Magic.
They're not on the same level as Goyf and Lion's Eye Diamond, and God forbid that thing is expensive now.
I mean, typically your lowest rarity cards for the best cards in the game top out at $30 a copy. Max.
Some of them do.
Unless they're SPs or Buddy Rares or something like that.
Right.
And that typically maxes at 80 to 100. It's very rare that you get cards worth more. And when you do, for instance, Platinum Rares hold value higher than that. But the problem with that is anything over 100, you're just not moving.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Whereas when you're playing just Magic, you're like, hey, I don't want this. Give me an example. Moat.
Yeah.
I don't want this moat anymore. You're going to get rid of it pretty easily.
Those things will sell for at least $300 to over $1,000, depending which edition it is.
And condition.
Have you seen Lion's Eye Diamonds? Those things went up to $400 a piece now. Those things used to be $130 not even 2 months ago.
That's pretty crazy.
But that's reserved list stuff, man. Reserved list always is just super expensive. And even something like the fetches, they're not on reserve list, but they're still expensive. That's because they're played in literally every single format that you can jam them in.
Next Modern Masters pack is going to reprint all of them.
I wish. I really wish.
What a set that would be.
The last one. We were lucky with the last one where we got Verdant Catacombs and all the more expensive ones in there.
All right, so how about this? What's one thing that took you a little while to grasp about Buddy Fight? Like, is there something that you're like, that's kind of weird?
I think it was the whole phases thing that was weird to me. It's like, well, is there an end step? Well, it's final phase. Well, what are you doing there? Oh, you can cast impacts. The heck is an impact?
And then that's going to be the best quote from this. What the heck is an impact? So the phases were a bit weird for you.
Yeah, because it's like, all right, you get a battle phase, okay, or whatever. So it's similar to Yu-Gi-Oh. You get your singular phases, and then it's like you have no hand size. Good. Hand size is overrated, anyways. In Magic, kind of like takes full advantage of it, anyways.
Oh, holy cow, does Matt? So Matt,
like, oh no, discard the hand size. I couldn't play a card. Oh no, it's Dredge. Why did it have to be Dredge?
When it comes to Magic, some things that I was, took me a little while to grasp, or just, it made me have to shift my thought process a little bit on. The fact that you can store up your mana in your mana pool,
like you can
still kind of weird for me.
Yeah, the fact you can float mana and whatnot.
Yeah, that's weird. It just takes practice to get used to, I think.
Right. Then that's where like a lot of the green decks are. Because green, if you think about it, is not really a fair color.
No.
The fairest color you will ever see in Magic is white.
What was the other thing? Oh, combat's a little weird in Magic.
Well, between double strike and the whole 9 yards.
It gets kind of complicated. Plus the fact that you typically you're naming all your attackers at once is a little weird. Whereas in Buddy Fight, you can do that, but it's optional. Link attacks.
Right.
But for the most part, it's very concise. And one of the biggest things that separates a bad Buddy Fight player from a good Buddy Fight player is knowing how to order your attacks. Right. Yeah. Do I attack with this first or do I attack with that first? And that's something that comes with practice.
Yeah.
But Magic, you don't necessarily have that. It's I swing with my dudes.
Right, and that's a whole different thought process too. Like, well, that's in the way, and I don't want to attack with this. However, and and then you kind of have to like think of what your opponent's thinking too.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think about how Buddy Fight does their packs?
I think their packs are kind of a little interesting, but it kind of feels like to me like if you don't like buy a box, you're basically ripping yourself off 90% of the time. However, where in Magic it's totally different. Where if you buy a box, you might make your money on it, depending on which box it is, but 90% of the time you won't.
So I'm used to how Buddy Fight does their packs,
right,
and how boxes work. I've been doing it for years. Just look at how many boxes I've ripped open on the channel.
Whereas Magic, it's slightly different than that. Like, you're not guaranteed like a super ultra expensive secret pack.
No.
However, you do have like a 1 in 6 or 1 in 12 chance to get like a foil mythic, which is effectively similar to that.
Right.
Or in 3 specific blocks, you have like the expeditions, which is like there's the Zendikar expeditions and there's the Kaladesh masterpiece.
Lottery cards are fun.
Yeah, especially when they look nice.
One thing that I found weird with the actual distribution of Magic cards is, first of all, modern Masters packs are really fun to open. Yeah. I think that's my favorite thing. But just talking about standard packs, they're a little weird because it's a 15 card pack, which is 3 times the number of cards you get in a Buddy Fight pack, right? And it almost feels like you go common, 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 throw them in the trash.
Most of them are.
Uncommon, uncommon. Maybe there's one good uncommon, then you throw the others in the trash, and you got your mythic, and then, you got a land and a...
sometimes even the rare or mythic rare is usually trash 90% of the time. Because it's is that Goyf? No. Trash. Is that a fetch land? No. Trash.
There's a lot of filler.
Yeah.
Which is why I like Masters packs. Is with Masters, even the uncommons and the commons, some of them are worth keeping.
Yeah, if you get a foil Brainstorm, man, those things fetch for a price.
There are generally, sure, they're not going to be oh my god, this common's worth $15. But their card's worth holding on because, hey, maybe you need a common Dark Ritual.
Right, there's
reason.
commons that people just absolutely cannot get a hold of. Some people just for some reason can't get a hold of foil preordains or foil ponders because legacy is a big factor in it in vintage. It's in vintage you only get what was it? It's either one brainstorm one brainstorm, but then you get a playset of preordains. I wonder why when foil preordain is $60. Because you can play 4 of it.
That's another thing that's very different. When you're playing Buddy Fight and you sit down and say, hey, you want to play Buddy Fight, you know what you're playing, right? It's just Buddy Fight. Buddy Fight has one format, and that's Buddy Fight. I've experimented with other formats, but no one else does. I find it fun, but it's not something relevant.
Yep.
Whereas Magic, it's like a survey you're filling out when someone goes, hey, what formats do you play?
Right.
I play Commander and Modern and Legacy and Vintage and Pauper and Frontier. And what's the new one? The new Commander-y
that
one for
stupid
Standard?
Brawl thing that
Brawl.
I think is going to die.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Yeah, and personally, I think the best formats out there are Legacy and Commander when you get to the spikier decks, because the spikier decks, you play a lot of cards you wouldn't normally see in a regular Commander deck. A regular Commander deck, what do you play? Green. Oh, good. Like everybody else here. Next. But then when you get to the more spikier stuff, you're Zavala. Why do you have Phyrexian Dreadnought in your deck? It just dies instantaneously. Oh, you draw a card and then you get 12 green mana off it. Good. And then you use Sabertooth to bounce it to your hand with the death trigger on the stack.
So something that was pretty unique, being an outsider, pushing my way into the Magic community.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more Magic-only terminology.
Yeah.
And people are oh, that's a Goyf, that's a bear, that's a bird, tons of stuff like that. There's
tons of cutesy names.
Yeah, there's tons of that stuff, which we don't really have that in Buddy Fight.
Right.
I'm oh, it's a good card. Done.
I just call Ozzy Dahaka, oh, that's an Ozzy.
Yeah. That, and I think part of it's, the culture's so much older for Magic. It's had that time to develop into, its own language, basically.
I just inadvertently always call Jace the Mind Sculptor Legendary Brainstorm Enchantment, because that's literally what it does every single time it comes down.
I have to stop Bryce sometimes where he's oh, and this card does this and this and this, and it's a this, and it reminds me of this. I'm I have no idea what you're talking about. How many times does that happen? I'm
too many.
But what's cool about that is I'm the type of person who loves to know every card in a card game,
Yeah.
And for some card games, it's easy to learn every relevant in-meta card. If you were asked right now to learn all the relevant cards in Buddy Fight, you've only got a couple hundred max to learn.
Right.
And that's really pushing it. Really, that's the number of cards played in meta are probably around 300 different cards.
Yeah.
Whereas Magic, it's thousands you could realistically see. So there's a lot that I get to learn and a lot of experimenting I get to do.
Mm-hmm. Or it's in Buddy Fight, it kind of, I kind of see a lot of I'm starting to see that a lot of the decks are like the same. It's like it has just a different name, but it's the same shell.
Mm-hmm. Or it just like uses a different route to get to the same place.
Right.
Is what I like to notice.
Because I know in Magic, there's typically like 4 strategies, but a lot of them play really different.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jund is a perfect example of like mid range. Like it has a lot of disruption and all that, but it also can be highly aggressive. Because literally the only thing holding Modern together is thought seizes and inquisitions, like hand disruption. Because otherwise, it just becomes, did you combo out? Good. All right. Well, I'm dead.
Yep. I noticed Magic has a lot more spikier cards and infinite combos and near infinite combos.
See the greatest hits of the Ancestor Recall?
Yeah.
What does it do? 1 blue mana, draw 3 cards at instant speed.
In formats like Vintage and Commander, I'd include on the list, it's who can break the game fastest.
Yep. And that's why I can't really do like casual Commander, because at some point, you have to accept that you have to do something broken in order to win the game.
Whereas Buddy Fight, even with its super power crept state, there are no ridiculous, 2-3 card combos that just win no matter what. Like some cards are overtly, this card's really strong.
Dear God.
Yeah, but it's not like, hey, I played this card and this card, so now I've got infinite gauge. And also you can't attack, and also you can't draw cards, and also, that doesn't happen.
Have you ever sat through the strip mine lock of good old ramped up excavator, a cursor crew fix, a fast spawn, and a strip mine?
See, this is what I'm talking about.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
The only reason I'd know what he's talking about is that I've fought against a lot of those cards.
It's basically like that beetle from Buddy Fight that whenever it attacks, it drops a gauge out of your opponent's deck.
But that's the entire deck.
But it's like, I do this how many times however I want on my turn. Also, I don't care, because my one card that makes me lose a life, I have another card that makes me gain life. So they just cancel each other out, and I just nuke your entire gauge every turn. I hope you like having no gauge for the rest of the game, because that's where we're headed.
So what do you think of the gauge engine itself? It's something that's pretty different.
I actually like that a lot, because then it makes you want to like get a hold of your resources a bit more, and then it's still RNGesus, but I'd rather do that than to be like Dragon Ball, where it's like it's forever there, and that's the only thing I gripe about Dragon Ball. You don't really care what you put down, because you're just running 4 of it anyways in your deck.
I always have loved how unique the mana system in Buddy Fight is, because it's a combination of 2 things. One,
it's resource management.
Yeah, it's temporary resources, and it's all management of that, which is really cool. But also, I think Buddy Fight doesn't get enough credit for the the single gameplay design that it does.
That no other card game in Japan ever does.
That's amazing. The charge and draw.
Mm-hmm.
How would you feel? Sure, Magic has its instant, beginning of the game mulligan, but that's more so to prevent mana screw, right?
Well, it tries.
But what I find interesting when I compare Buddy Fight to other games, and one I like to compare it to is Yu-Gi-Oh.
Mm-hmm.
You in Buddy Fight, you never have dead cards in your hand, because if you have a dead card in your hand, you're just charging it.
It's not like, oh man, this ritual deck hates me today because I opened up nothing but ritual monsters and no ritual spells to summon them. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Gishkis, you suck.
All right, so how about this? We'll end this off, because we've been a little ranty, with you listing 3 things you like about Buddy Fight, and I will list 3 things I like about Magic. Do you want to go first or second?
I'd like to go first.
Okay.
And the first thing I like to do is is so much the charge and draw system, because like I like the fact that even though, yes, you can't mulligan at the beginning of the game, you can mulligan 1 card away every turn to effectively get a mana back. I think that's a sweet design, where it's not like busted where it's like a full-on Paris mulligan, because Magic tried that once and that didn't work out great.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't work. But you tried, France, you tried. But the other thing I like, too, is like the artwork and the rarities on the cards. Like,
you like your shiny cards?
I just love the artwork, like especially the And part of the reason why I got into it is the Ozzy Dahaka and the Evil Deities, how sweet their artwork is and how the foiling goes. Because it feels like it's not overdone.
I think what you're touching on without realizing it is that Buddyfight has a really, really large variety of artwork.
They do.
You know, everyone
that's what I like.
finds something they like.
Right. And like I don't care much for the buddy rares myself, but the triple rares, that's where it's at, man. Those are the best.
Shame they warp though.
Well, I mean, 90% of the cards warp today. I'm looking at you, Magic.
Yeah.
Fix your card stock.
All right, you got one more, right?
Yes, yeah. and that's basically the whole gauge system in its entirety. Like, yeah, RNG just kind of screws you sometimes, but it's not like Dragon Ball where it's like, well, I'm going to place this down here because that's dead or whatever, and then you know what's going to happen. Where in Buddy Fight, it's not entirely up to you. I mean, it's a love and hate kind of thing. Like, you love it when it works out, but you hate it when it just bites you in the butt.
Mm-hmm. All right, my turn.
Yes.
First thing, and this you could say really about any old card game, card game that's been around for a long time, but Magic takes the cake by far. Variety.
Yeah.
If I think of a gameplay style or like something I want to do in Magic, there's a full deck that will support it.
Mm-hmm.
And
build a deck just about anything you want in Magic.
That's one thing I really like. Or you can go, archetype, or you can go off some stupid theme you thought of, or like it's a deck builder's paradise. Because there are so many options. And I really like that. Number two, I really like the community.
Yes.
There are so many cool people you can talk to in Magic, and I think the Magic community does a great job at bringing in, helping new players, and
yeah, absolutely.
But also, I just like, hanging out with Magic people. They're fun.
Yeah.
And number three,
Vintage Cube.
Vintage Cube could be a whole discussion on its own. Yeah, that's really fun. But I guess that leads in more. Formats and customizability. Magic almost feels, you ever play a board game a whole bunch and like people have house rules?
Yeah.
That's how Magic feels to me. Like you can tailor the game sometimes to be more personalized to you. Yeah. You don't like playing Standard and seeing the same decks over and over again? Play Commander. You'll see some crazy decks. You don't like playing Commander because you think 100-card decks are boring for some reason and you're a weirdo? Play some limited format. Play a cube or play some drafts. And the fact that you can actually reasonably expect to find people to draft with in Magic is amazing because I love drafting. And, there's no draft format for Buddy Fight. It was abandoned years ago, and that makes me sad.
I don't think they could do it, though.
They could. It used to be really fun, and this is... Okay, so when I've drafted in Magic, it's always, find the combos that will make your deck good, right? Buddy Fight drafting is different because your card pool is so limited. It's, hey, I'm going to play this awful card, and I'm going to try and somehow squeeze it in to make it work. It's like a chaotic mess, and that's kind of fun.
That feels like Yu-Gi-Oh! Draft, and that sounds terrible.
Maybe.
Because Yu-Gi-Oh! Drafting is god-awful garbage.
Unless you're restricting yourself to, battle packs. No. Which, who would do that? I'm not a fan.
Personally, that game needs a hardcore reboot, but that just...
But, holy cow, there are so many different formats you can play. I'm still learning of new formats. I'm like, what the hell is that format that someone just mentioned?
They're like, hey, what's Tiny Leaders? It's dead.
I've never even heard of that, so...
And most people don't either because they decided to not help that format out and let it die.
Good. All right, well, I think that's about it. Do you have any final thoughts?
I'm just so happy you're here. You're in my within reach.
The nice part is we both have card games we share now. I'm like, hey, you want to try fighting against this Buddy Fight deck that's going to make you rage that you've never heard of before? And you're like, yeah, sure. Check out this Magic deck. Oh, no.
And they're like, I stopped your combo. Oh, now I got to walk you through this one. What? Yeah?
It's kind of fun being like the person leading you into Buddy Fight because I'm like, check out this stupid stuff. And you're like, well, check out this stupid stuff in Magic.
If you ever played against Stacks and Magic, it's just a wonderful pile of misery incarnate.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining us and sitting through this episode. Like this video, subscribe, all that YouTube-y stuff. I'm not even going through the list. But most importantly, share your experience with card games in the comments. What's your main game? And did you transition into a new game? And was it weird? And were there things that took a while to get adjusted to? All that kind of stuff. That's all I got. You want to say goodbye?
Yeah, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Goodbye. Peace.
Thanks for listening to TCG Buzz. New episodes can be found on tcgbuzz.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. For box openings, deck profiles, and more, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.